Hello everyone. Thank you for attending in person and thank you for attending virtually. My name is Devin Jones. I am a member of the Cleveland Observer's Board. We are a local nonprofit organization. We are a media platform serving the greater community of Cleveland and areas surrounding. We thank you all for coming today. We are here live with an event called Our Mental Health in Focus. The purpose of this event is to talk about mental health in Cleveland and ways that we can address the issues that we are seeing on a day-to-day basis. Today we have two very esteemed guests and we'll allow our moderator to introduce them. But before we start, I would like to first thank all of our sponsors, which is the Cleveland Foundations, Black Futures Fund, Neighborhood Connections, and all of those who have been in support of the paper since we have started in 2020. Lastly, I would like to thank all of our partners who have set this event up. Number one, the Cleveland State University, the mighty Cleveland State University, excuse me. We would like to thank you all for your support. And we would like to also bring up our program that this is a part of, which is the Student News Desk, which serves the greater Cleveland community by bringing students into the newsroom, into the community spaces and places to talk about the issues that impact residents. So we're very excited to have this event, and we're excited to have many more in the future. Please look us up at thecleobserver.com. One more time, thecleobserver.com. And I'd like to introduce our moderator, Tiffany.
All right. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
My name is Tiffany Alexander, and I will be moderating today's panel on mental health issues in the Black community here in Cleveland, Ohio. I have two guests. To my very far left is Eric L. King, Sr. He is a licensed professional clinical counselor and a graduate of Cleveland State University with a master's degree in clinical psychology and community mental health counseling. He has a positive, relaxed, and calming approach to working with his clients. In addition, Eric utilizes an integrated strength-based cognitive behavioral approach to working with adolescents, adults, and families. Eric and his wife, Joy King, are the founders of Mental and Emotional Wellness Centers of Ohio, which is one of the few Black-owned mental health practices in the state that offers a whole-body care. To my immediate left is Ms. Qwen Smith. She is a licensed professional counselor who believes there is a profound power in a therapeutic relationship. Qwen assists clients struggling with depression, anxiety, and other mood and behavioral disorders. In addition, she works with families struggling to grow together due to poor communication skills. Her client population consists of adolescents and adults between the ages of 12 and 55. Qwen graduated from Cleveland State University with a Master's of Health Education degree in mental health counseling. Her training has provided her the experience of working with a diverse, multicultural clientele. Her goal is to provide the healthiest clinical environment to best support her clients through their therapeutic growth process. So this is a community conversation. I have some questions that I'm going to ask both Eric and Qwen. But at any time, if you have questions, make some noise, raise your hand. Again, we want this to be a dialogue, a conversation, and the beginning of many dialogues and conversations. So I am going to first open up this question with, this panel with something incredibly broad. And I'll start with Eric. What is mental health?
Oh, wow. To make it actually simple, or hopefully keep it as simple as possible, mental health is simply how you respond to certain things that occur in your life. So we're talking about behavioral response, we're talking about physiological response. It's just literally we have things that happen to us in our everyday life, and how we respond to that dictates how the quality of our mental health.
Okay. Qwen, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll add that in addition to your behavioral response and your physiological response, you have to also be aware of what's going on mentally for you, what thoughts you're having, being able to understand how those connect to your behavioral responses as well as your emotional responses to be able to then decide best how to respond.
Great. When people think of being treated for mental health, a lot of different types of practitioners come to mind. There are counselors, there are therapists, there are psychologists. Who are these people? What do they do?
Go ahead.
So I'll start with psychiatrists. So psychiatrists they have medical degrees. They're medical doctors that they focus on your biology and what's going on as far as other chemical imbalances that contribute to the problems that you might be seeing, and they prescribe medication.
And then the others, social workers, counselors, even psyches, those are practitioners. So more that's working with some of our theoretical approaches to behavioral change or emotional fulfillment. They work from modalities such as cognitive behavioral therapy, trauma-informed therapy, those modalities. Now, the difference between a counselor and a social worker, it sometimes has to do with how they connect to the client. Sometimes social workers are viewed from connecting with the client in more of a system-oriented approach, meaning as in family system, community system, and sometimes counselors are more focused on that working in office behavioral understandings and communication as well as emotional stability. But for the most part, other than psychiatrists or psychiatric nurse practitioners, we pretty much do the same thing, but just have different approaches to our clients.
Okay. And when might someone choose to see a practitioner or be encouraged to see a practitioner?
I would say if they're noticing that they are having a hard time navigating things at home or at work, or they're finding a lot of problems in their relationships with people, or they're just noticing where something really big has happened, a loss or things going on out in the community, a pandemic, those types of huge stressors and how people are responding to them. If they're having a hard time being able to, get their work done or have fulfilling relationships with people, or just take care of the normal responsibilities at home, keeping up with, household things, that might be an indication that they should speak with someone with the problems they might be seeing.
Also, when you see a change in behavior, and that behavior is impacting your day-to-day life. So there are times when things are happening to us that don't necessarily warrant someone, going to see someone. It's really when your day-to-day life or your habitual life is impacted and you begin to see a change in your behavior, and have to be surrounded by individuals that can tell you the truth, that can allow you to be corrected, so to speak.
I thought I caught a glimpse of a hand somewhere. Did anyone have a question or something they wanted to add or contribute? And again, we wanted to make this a dialogue, so anytime you have something that you feel like you want to say or add or contribute, please feel free to raise your hand or somehow otherwise get my attention. So we talked about lifestyle factors that can affect your mental health. You mentioned the pandemic as one of them. Can you give me some other ideas of things that impact someone's mental health? They may think, I'm doing fine, I'm just going to power through this, but maybe they should consider that maybe they need a little bit of assistance.
Yeah, so going back to the things that happen to us in our life. One, so if you're a younger individual and you move a lot, dealing with moving. If you are a college-age individual and you're noticing that that loneliness that first strikes, these are just really, simplistic. But as a full-fledged adult or going through life, anytime that you're recognizing that it's becoming more difficult to do the things that you did yesterday, a little bit, more difficult to do the things that you did yesterday more easily, that's where things get a little off. So lifestyle changes, having a baby, switching a job, pandemic, your car getting stolen. So these are, just these things are lifestyle changes, inflation, being turned down for a loan.
Yeah. So
So there's a lot of common things that happen to us. Now, not everything that happens to us means that we need to go talk to someone, but definitely if you're noticing poor sleeping habits, poor eating habits, your relationships are off, then that's definitely time to go speak to somebody.
I would add too, if you are someone who is seeing a lot of violence or maybe works in a field, healthcare, and you see a lot of death and things people going through hard things, and how that might be impacting your ability to be able to provide a service or do a job that
experience a mental health episode?
It really depends on the person and what stage of their distress that they're in. So there are times when someone have situational struggles that don't necessarily means that they need some type of medication or intervention. When it becomes a chronic issue, meaning chronic depression, chronic stress, or chronic anxiety, to where some of the more non-medicinal interventions are not working, then maybe the medication is needed in order to, I like to call it, turning down the noise within the person, so that some of the traditional interventions, can take hold in that individual. So it really depends on the individual rather than some type of, checklist.
Oh,
I have a question. When I heard you briefly mention if someone is experiencing or around violence in prolonged periods of time. So I guess my question is centered around trauma. We're all members of Cleveland presumptively. How is it that we can address the trauma that people are seeing on a day-to-day basis in formal settings such as in clinical perspective and as in communities perspective?
That's a really good question, because I have a lot of clients who often don't realize that the things that they've gone through and seen can impact them in a traumatic way. And so really informing people what is trauma, and it can be seeing a lot of violence, being involved in a lot of violence, or having a parent that's incarcerated. Those things count as trauma, and if you are having a response to it, having a hard time being trust people and just how that impacts you, being able to understand how that can impact a person, and talking about that and normalizing that too, because a lot of people, especially Black people, we tend to, have the mindset we have to be strong, we have to keep going, we have to be resilient, and we have this, tolerance for a lot of things that we have gotten used to tolerating and kind of desensitized in ways for some people as well. And so it's important to have conversations, inform people, normalize that it's okay to have those responses to things that are happening, and being able to talk about ways that we can take care of that, because you can overcome that and move forward.
The other part is, if you're out in the community, having space in order for an individual to feel comfortable. So if we're talking about community locations, we're talking about community event, allowing an individual to, strategically setting up the space so that the individuals that, come to that space see it as a free area, see where they can take off their mask. And then you go into that concept of education, normalization, and breaking down the stigma. We have to have more locations where we feel comfortable in faces that look like us talking about these things and normalizing, not the violence, because we do a really good job of normalizing the violence, but normalizing the discussions that help us process what we experience and what we see as well.
Yes.
Working with, as therapists and working with young children, how do you engage them, or what tools do you use to get them to engage with you? Because I know that can be a challenge. So what steps do you take? Just for example, in your practice.
So what I like to do is just be me. A lot of times when individuals come in, or depending on who you are, you have this grand plan of what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. First of all, just be who you are. So one of my tools that I use is literally, if I have a new client and they have their parents, while I'm speaking to their parent or while they're in the room, the very first thing after I go through all the paperwork is say, okay, if you're looking for someone to be a reporter on your child, I'm not the best person. If you're looking for someone to actually come back and tell you what this child is talking about, I'm not that person. And so what that does is tell the child that this is a safe space. And being exactly who you are and meeting them, which is one of our terms, where they are. Don't try to go in being their friend. Don't try to go in being the mentor. Don't try to go in to educate them. Just literally just be quiet and listen.
That's really important, and just helping them understand that you're there to help them. You're there for them, and you want them to feel a part of the process just as much as you are, because you are going to help them together. And finding, asking about their interests, what they enjoy, what they would maybe like brought into therapy. If they have an interest in art, then we can figure out ways to do art in therapy, or games, things like that. Or, if they like sports, being able to bring sport references into things to help deepen their understanding of what they might be experiencing, so that they really feel like it's their time to help them feel comfortable.
Kids are smarter than what we think.
Yes.
And they're more intuitive to their emotions than what we think. And so if we just start with that premise, that they're not dumb, that they're not, they know what's going on with them, and just be quiet and let it happen.
Anything else from the audience?
Yeah, I want to say something about the tool that she just mentioned. About 3 weeks ago, my company has met with the First Lady of Georgia at this camp on a tool that we developed, that can be deployed to the therapist, that can be used as a force multiplier, so they can continue the engagement with the child in between the actual appointment, right? So there's evidence-based exercises and expositions in a cloud-based closed environment that the therapist can grab and send out to the child, right? In that 2 to 3 month period, we're not seeing the children at all, So, and it helps with the removing the stigma, because the child is able to use the device in the comfort of their own home, and no one's watching them, and they're kind of getting comfortable, and oftentimes based upon the study, they share more when they have that type of opportunity, when people not looking, right? And the therapist still has the ability to see the interaction between the child and the technology. So I think as we continue down this path, and we get technology to play a role in removing the stigma, it's better for us all.
Yes.
I just want to touch on what you were speaking about being yourself. I work with child family service, and we have different, we have plans how we're going to interact with children, and I see a lot of times that if we have plans where we're going to operate this way, a lot of times it doesn't work. But when you natural yourself, the kids will be honest. They're going to let you know how they feel, no matter what it is. They're not going to pull no punches. They're going to tell you how it is. So I definitely agree with you.
Yeah, they're smart. They won't rethink.
Anything else from the audience? Okay. So we've touched on needing tools, realizing when it might be time to see someone. Are there tools that any of us can use at home if we're starting to feel overwhelmed, we're starting to feel anxious, we're starting to feel like maybe this trauma or this experience I just had is starting to keep me from being my best self. It's starting to keep me from wanting to get up every day at 6 to get to work. Are there tools that we can use at home to help us do that?
One of the things that I like to do is just read different books on different things. So Atomic Habit is a really good book that provides you a website to go to do this thing called the marble approach. So you get a marble, you get a bunch of marbles, you get a bowl, and each day you have a task that you need to do. You take a marble out of one, and out of the bowl, and put it into the next. And what it does, it provides the individual who is having a struggle with getting up, or a struggle with completing a task, be accountable visually to what's going on. So that's one. Another, if you're struggling with, I guess you were explaining physiological approaches to certain aspects, or certain mental health struggles. Some of the tools that I use or we use is one, deep breathing, belly breathing, box breathing, which is, you can look all these up, box breathing. Those are all some ways to help with anxiety. And just overall, an accountability partner. Someone who you can be honest with and straightforward. There are other apps out there, but I don't have them all in my head right now. But there are other apps out there But there are some traditional tools and non-traditional tools that can help you move, forward in a very healthy way.
Yeah, and I want to add to that, I know self-care, that term has been really popular, but it is important for you to figure out the things that you need to do to take care of yourself. If you need to be able to have maybe 30 minutes in the morning where you make sure that you're going to have that time to be able to have coffee or read or do things that you enjoy, and making sure you get to that time so that you can expect to be able to do that and engage in something that makes you feel good. Exercising is important as well, to just be for your physical health, which feeds directly into your mental health as well. Giving yourself your body time to move, or if it's taking walks, being out in nature, that is very impactful for some people to be able to have that time where they're outside and just able to focus on what's going on outside rather than what's going on in their lives, that there may be things that you can't control that are going on, but giving you that break.
Also, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Also, pay attention to what you eat. There's a book called This Is Your Brain on Food. And it does a really good job of breaking down certain foods that are connected to depression, anxiety, attention issues that, provide you opportunities to pay attention to what you eat. Because one of the things that, I always love to do is ask clients, what did you eat this week? And have them, one tool is do what's called an eating journal, to where they pay attention to what they eat as it relates to, how their mood fluctuations with, how their mood fluctuated since the last time I saw them.
Right here? Yes.
I just wanted to ask someone who has anxiety too and has been experiencing it for a while, like bringing light to the fact that it changes and how it affects you changes. And I think that I kind of wanted to see what you have to say about chronic, mental illness. For me, I never maybe had physiological effects from my anxiety, but now, later on, now I am. And maybe the same self-care mechanisms that I once had don't work anymore. So, what would you say as far as navigating chronic mental illness and, the ebb and flow of how it changes throughout your life and, managing to find what still, gets you up, gets you up in the morning, gets you through what you want to do and what you're passionate about?
Oh yeah, I'll start.
Okay.
So I appreciate your question because that is really real, right? Because we have clients and we'll be talking and they'll talk about how this might work this week and it's no longer working. And so it's really important to track that awareness, what's going on, what happened, what triggered it, and what did you do, and kind of monitoring how your response helped or did not help, and trying to figure out maybe what could be contributing to it not helping. So just gaining that awareness and understanding, having to reflect, and then try something new, which can sound scary because, with anxiety, change is not always the thing that you may want to do. However, but being able to kind of diversify and try a different skill for maybe a different category, because there's, distraction or self-soothing or relaxation, trying to just see what may help the next time and tracking that and giving it some time, because, you want to try it more than once or twice to see if it's something that could be impactful.
Another follow-up to what Qwen was saying, be intentional. That's being intentional, knowing what the triggers are and knowing how your body responds to the triggers. And then just like Qwen said, be flexible. Be okay with understanding that if I didn't like my coffee the same way today, I might like it this way tomorrow. And being okay with being flexible and open. And then the other part is, to go to your point, as chronic. An individual that suffers from any chronic disorder, the vessel or the body does begin to break down. Because it is, when you were younger, you had more flexibility with your body. You had more, easier to repair. But and it is true, as you get older, you begin to notice that the things that I did before does not work, now. So that means that now I may have to implement stretching. Now I may have to implement possibly eating different, right? So go back to what I ingest. Also going to sleep or, ingesting less social media. So some of these things as it relates to how our body responds, first, realize that if you suffer from some type of chronic mental health, struggle, your body is definitely going to react differently than it did 5 years ago to 10 years ago. And being intentional and flexible on how you take care of your body will definitely help. So flexibility on activity, what you ingest, and how you protect yourself going back to self-care.
I was just going to say, something that you mentioned earlier about the marbles, which is a good tool. I like that idea. But it's something that I do a lot of times if I have a lot of tasks to do during the course of the day. I will look at the end of the day, I will look at what I completed and not what I didn't.
Exactly.
So I try to get a positive and not a negative.
Exactly, more positive.
I just had a question. It's very hard to find mental health professionals, especially those who reflect or recognize your struggle, your experience, and look like you. And so what are some tips, or what are ways that we can go through the process of finding mental health care professionals in Cleveland? Secondly, how does a person know if this is a therapist for them?
Yeah. That's the hard one. Which one? All right, so first, to your first question as it relates to finding therapists, what I think is more therapists need to get out of the office and do this. More therapists need to be, especially therapists that look like us. Cleveland State, John Carroll, Ursuline, who am I missing? Notre Dame. So all these individuals produce, Case, I'm sorry. I apologize. All these individuals, produce counselors. And so they go from the education field to agencies. And then once they go to agencies, they go through their experience as agencies. Now, what I suggest, and I put it first on the shoulders of the counselors, get out more. Be okay with talking about it more. Write blogs, do radio shows, be personable. That's one. And then secondly, use the tools that are out there. We have Psychology Today. Psychology Today does an excellent job of curating the type of counselor that you want. And so whatever you want, whatever type of counselor you want, I guarantee you can find it in Cleveland. You just need to do the footwork. So that's two parts. One, put it back on the counselors, get out of the office and do more things like this. And secondly, for the individual, be okay with, searching. Now that last one, you want to do the last one? You want to tag team?
And I would add, be open to the idea that the first therapist that you go to may or may not be a good fit. And so doing your research and having an understanding of what you want to gain roughly, because some people do go into therapy and don't quite know. Have questions. You can ask your therapist questions about their experiences and what they maybe specialize in, so that you can decide if this is a person that you would want to continue with. And if there's anything that comes up for you that you're noticing that you feel uncomfortable, bring that up. We're trained to be able to have those types of conversations with clients if they're bringing up that they are worried that their therapist or counselor might not be able to provide them with guidance on something because of their race or ethnic background or whatever the case may be. So we're all trained to be able to have those conversations and should be expecting it because it's your time. So ask questions, and if you have talked things out with that person and still don't feel like it's quite a fit after a few sessions, it's okay to ask for a referral and continue your search.
It's okay to ask questions to your counselor, and that's how you know. The counselor's open to asking questions or answering questions. That's how you know if that individual is open and honest and okay.
How would you go about approaching a colleague or a friend who, you've known probably maybe your whole life, that they're spiraling, they've had parental deaths, they're not dealing with their own aging very well, they're building walls constantly and then complaining that the rest of the world is crazy, but they're building pull them out of that wall building thing, or anytime you suggest anything mildly that you think would help, they take it as criticism, and I don't need more criticism. My brothers and sisters and, you know, family are giving me all that over the, you know, the estate, and anything you say is a bad thing. You just can't, you know, they turn everything positive or that you think is positive into a negative and throw it back in your face. I know that's really a lot.
It can be tricky, and I think starting from a place of, you know, compassion and care, and really emphasizing that you're concerned because you care about them.
Also, we as individuals have this tendency to fix, where sometimes we just need to do absolutely nothing to be there. Right? So you just need to sit on, you know, the old joke, right? Sit on a pile of ash and just sit there and be with them. And so far too often, you know, we try to push individuals in a direction that they don't want to go, rather than just realizing the greatest thing that we probably can do is just chill, just relax, be quiet, and when asked a question, answer the question. When asked for assistance, be there to assist. But a lot of times, proximity and presence is usually the greatest thing that proximity, presence, and modeling. So those are the three, are usually the best things that an individual can do to help someone who's struggling.
There's a question up here. And then I see you, I'm sorry, you're up next. Go ahead.
I just wanted to make a comment real quick of attesting to as far as like Cleveland States and Case Western and all of like in Cleveland as far as being hubs is looking towards mental health service. 2023 CSU allowed social work major, but I saw mental health from CSU when I was going there. And the first, you know, I was lucky that the first therapist that I found I really had a match with, but I think it just really attested to, I easily was able to contact the counseling services and be referred to somebody, and I specifically asked for someone who's LGBTQ, who, you know, is related for, and I got that. And so, you know, I think I just wanted to like make that a testament that really did happen to me. And that, you know, like as far as like looking to the universities, like I really do genuinely think that's the way to go as far as looking for mental health in Cleveland.
There's a comment back here.
Just kind of going along with the conversation of seeking out mental health services. We're kind of in a post-pandemic time, so thinking about that global trauma and how people have returned to work and kids have returned to school. Are there any conversations in your expertise where you're hearing a change in format, where they may be implementing something different for the schools, for just bringing the services to children, or even like at work, when some people may not even realize they're dealing with a mental health crisis, instead of like disciplinary actions or things like that? Are there services or things that you all are hearing that they want to change to kind of deal with that, because it's been such a big trauma for everyone?
I think that the response has been to try to increase supports in a lot of the schools, as far as who they partner with to bring in mental health counselors to be able to not only support the children and families, but also be able to educate staff as well, who are, you know, teaching and having their own things that they might be going through, and being able to be informed as well, culturally and trauma informed, and trying to make sure that everyone has access to those resources, having meetings, you know, in the beginning of the school year, and reminding throughout that there are resources in the schools. And I speak for schools just for the clients that I have that are teenagers and children. Do you want to talk about work?
Yeah, I think if we look at the pandemic, one of, you know, and it's hard to find the silver lining, one of the greatest things that happened from the pandemic is the awareness of mental health, or the importance of an individual's peace of mind. And so what I've been seeing is that, one, the stigma, or there's more individuals talking about mental health, which is allowing the stigma of mental health to be, you know, lessened. So I've seen that in the workplace. They're bringing in and being more proactive about what it means to, what does self-care means at work. Does it mean a 4-day work week? Does it mean hybrid work environments? So one of the things that I've been noticing in the workspace is that they're being more intentional about how they're connecting with the individuals, their employees. And so that may bring in someone like us to actually do the work, not just talk about doing the work. You know, they may bring in a mental health advocate when before they would bring in just someone to talk about a 5-step program or something. They're literally bringing individuals in who has licensure and all that other good stuff in to work with their employees, just like they do in school. Bringing actual clinicians into schools to not just be a depot for bad kids, that they would say bad kids, but doing the actual work in creating program and curriculum within schools. So they're not great. This is my soapbox. They're not great, but I have seen some changes.
I think it goes along the question that Blair just asked. We are in a very interesting time as a people, right? As a country, we're continuously being divisive or divided. Locally, there are 2 different wars that a lot of people don't have context on or have an opinion about, right? I guess my question is, how do we begin to frame the discussion of mental health within this reality of calamity we're in, while we're still acknowledging what it is a blessing to be alive, but while still understanding where we are and how to sit with reality and to truly cope with what's happening? You know?
Yeah, that, or you want me?
The reason I ask is, I think it's a lot of times. Well, the reason I ask, I think a lot of people, when they sit there and think about therapy and they reject it, they think about people automatically becoming happier and this and that. But they're learning how to cope, right? So how do we make that more of a thing, right?
I'll try to bring this one. You ready?
Yeah, I'll have.
So let's look at it like this. And great question, because definitely during the pandemic, the vicarious trauma of, the killing of black males or black individuals by the police that we constantly watch, right? So to answer your question, you have to know your limits, because when we're looking on social media and we're watching some of these videos the only difference is right there in our face. So you have to know your limits, because you're definitely, because it's not happening to you, your body is being affected. So Body Keeps the Score is an extraordinary book. Read that. It's, vicarious trauma is happening even if you feel as though it's not. So know your limits. That's the best I can.
Know your limits and be able to have the space to talk about it when you do want to talk about it, because these things are inevitably happening and they do affect us. And when, in the pandemic, when I was a school-based therapist at the time, we talked a lot about how to talk with the kids about what was going on to help them shape a healthy perspective of how to cope. So being able to have those conversations and kind of take a break from, school stuff, because there are other things happening out in the world that are directly impacting your ability to learn. So bringing that up and being able to talk about it and also give the tools of how to cope with it.
I'm sorry, I'll address your question. We have talked several times, you guys have mentioned numerous times, the physiological effects of trauma, of
because we like to demonize social media, but social media has made millionaires. Let's be perfectly candid about it. It has made millionaires. So we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. First thing you do, if I'm speaking to that athlete, is one, what's your intention for social media? Is it to increase your brand? What is it for? Secondly, let's come up with some parameters as it relates to this social media that feeds you rather than harms you. And then thirdly, have a constant feedback loop. There are some individuals, you know, I've heard and read that they don't read the what's it called? The DM thing. They don't read them. And what they do is when they post, they actually utilize that little button that says, do not allow comments. Or do not allow for, so they utilize the technology that is already built in to the device. And so if I'm working with those athletes, you know, I'm going to figure out their purpose for this thing and work within their purpose.
Anything else from the audience? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just don't want you all to leave without doing a plug for yourselves, the businesses and opportunity and services you all offer to the community. I think that would be very beneficial.
Yeah, well, we are Mental and Emotional Wellness Centers of Ohio. We're located in Independence. We currently have 4 therapists and a psychiatric nurse practitioner. Did I do that right?
We have 6.
6.
I got you.
Okay. There's several of us. And so you can contact us at 216-282-3733. If you have any questions, you will get our intake line, and someone will be answering questions based off of what you're looking for, and can make a referral to someone in the agency if you are looking for a therapist or medication management as well. And if we happen to not be the best fit for you all, we can also make referrals out into the community as well, because it is, you know, a collaborative effort.
And give us your website as well.
Yes, MEWCOHIO.com. That's MEWCOHIO.com. And so you'll see all of us there. The other thing is what makes us really unique, not only that we're small, and we're one of the few that have, 2 other, along, you know, in addition to myself, black male therapists. I'm not sure if you know, if you don't know, we're pretty much an anomaly out here, especially working in the way that we work. We don't work for an agency, we actually work for ourselves. And because we work for ourselves, we have more the luxury, you know, Qwen maybe can talk to this, to actually do the work in a way that we actually wanted to do it when we were students. Not how we, you know, may have needed to do it in order to, when we were working at agencies or whatnot. So, you know, I truly feel as though it's a benefit in being connected to a therapist that has the freedom to treat you in the way that you want to be treated, not in the time frame that an agency wants you to be treated or a hospital wants you to be treated. So that's us.
Thank you.
That's my public service announcement.
Anything else from the audience? Okay, so there are a few other things on my list of things that I would like us to talk about a little bit. And we, again, touched on this a little bit because it just kind of comes up. Misconceptions or preconceived notions about either mental health practitioners or what it means when you seek out mental health. Can you tell us what some of those are and maybe debunk them if they need to be debunked? So misconceptions.
Yeah, so misconceptions. So we do not give advice, we do not judge, we do not critique. It's not our job to tell you how to live your life. It is literally our job to be the GPS. So you tell us where you want to go, and we direct you in getting there. And so that's a misconception that that I've had. And individuals tell me what I should do. Absolutely not, because then that's my responsibility, and I got my own life to live. So that's a misconception. Another misconception is that if you go see a counselor, then something is wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. Let me be perfectly transparent. There's something wrong with everybody. I've been doing this for almost 20 years. Not yet. I've come in contact with people, and there's something wrong with everybody. And so there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. And at times, you just need a tune-up. You You drive a car, you need a tune-up. You got an iPhone, you need an upgrade. Or software. Let's be real. Nothing come out, from the factory, including birth, perfectly okay. Everybody need a little tune-up.
Right. Do you have anything you want to add to that point?
Going to therapy does not make you weak. It is one of the most courageous things that you can do, and being vulnerable actually helps you be able to grow and be able to find your strength to overcome whatever it is that's bringing you there. That's also a really big one, is that people think that if they go to therapy that it makes them weak or it makes them crazy, and that's just not the case.
There's no such thing as good and bad emotions. It's just uncomfortable and comfortable and uncomfortable.
And I do have one or two more things, but I want to make sure this is a conversation and that I'm not monopolizing things. So anyone else in the audience want to add or question or? Yes.
I was just gonna suggest you should bring business cards and handouts or whatever.
Yeah.
If you're gonna allow you the community to interact and stuff, it should be a two-way street. We should bring us something so that we can, you've told us that information.
Yes, that is the thing that we have not, so we
We need a takeaway.
right, we don't learn a lot in school. How to promote ourselves in advertisement is the one thing that I have yet to do well. We're just learning business aspects in school as it relates to being a mental health provider. Definitely promoting yourself is not something that, we do well, and I forget all the time.
Okay.
Oh no, that's exactly it. Yeah. Yep.
Anyone else in the audience?
I just think this is a very informative forum, and I think we should have more of these
Yes.
more often. Talk to the Cleveland Observer now, but I think there should be more of these, so more people need to hear about this.
Okay, anyone, keep going out there. And I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit of a glare, so that's why I'm kind of doing this. Okay, so my final question before we do a complete wrap-up. You've talked about kind of this being a process, the journey of GPS. People come in, they want you to tell me what to do, and you're like, no, I'm in GPS. What should people expect when they decide, okay, it's time for me to sit down and have a conversation with somebody, it's time for me to address whatever trauma or anxiety I have? What does that process look like? Is it finite? Is it goal-centered? What is it?
Well, it is. They should expect that it's going to be uncomfortable at times, and it is going to feel hard, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong, and that sometimes coming in and talking about the things that are bringing you in might make you feel, it's going to cause a lot of questions, and there's someone there to help you learn more about yourself and where you want to go and figure out how to get there. And some people go into therapy and for one reason, and then they discover that something else is really the underlying reason for why they're there, and so then that requires more work. And then sometimes people come in and then the issue is resolved, but then they might be back in a few years because something else has popped up, because we don't know what's coming until it gets there, and we figure out how we're responding to it, and then realize that we need some help in getting through whatever it is that we're facing.
So what I tell my clients is you start therapy in order to finish. And so you're not supposed to be in therapy for, not like you see on TV. You start therapy in order to finish. I also tell my clients it's like a dark tunnel. You start off on one end and you don't see the end, or you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. But if you trust me as your counselor or your counselor to go through that tunnel, what will happen is you will see the end. Now, just like Qwen said, right smack dab in that middle of that tunnel, it's going to be dark. You're not looking back, you're not going to see light, and looking forward, you're not going to see light. Just trust that when you're in the middle, when it's difficult and most troubling to you, that is where the greatest change is. And so I tell my clients, the journey is literally just trusting me, trusting you, and knowing that at the end of this, you will be different. Because if you go backwards, you're only going to be stuck where you were, because you can't unlearn anything that you learned about yourself. It's really difficult. Well, it's impossible.
And then one final
We have a question.
Oh, I'm
Go ahead.
sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Okay,
Please.
this is one question. Do you need referrals, or what insurance do you accept, or is it like a pay per person type of?
So no, you don't need a referral. We take pretty much all insurances. This is my soapbox. Pay your therapist, whether who it is, pay your therapist. Pay the copay. Pay, what they deserve. Because the greatest way to get more independent therapists out there to where you can have access to is to realize that what we do is a value business just like anything else. Meaning if you go get your hair done, your nails done, you pay those people, or you get your house cleaned, pay your therapist. Pay your copay, pay what is owed. And so that's my only thing. So we accept, at our practice, we accept all insurances. And we do, we do have, if your insurance has a copay, pay that. But I think, one of the things that I always like to say is, we pay for things that we value. If you value yourself and your mental, stability, then pay the individuals that's helping. That was my public service.
You guys do telehealth as well?
Yes, we do.
Telehealth, okay. For those of you who haven't done. All right, I do have one final question, but I want to make sure I didn't miss anything else before I do that. Everyone all set in the audience? Wonderful. If someone is apprehensive, they feel like they need to call you guys or someone like you, but they're feeling apprehensive right now, what is your word of advice to that person?
Ooh, let's see, apprehensive. I think, I don't know, looking at it from that standpoint, if an individual is, if your insurance has a copay, pay that. But I think, one of the things that I always like to say is, we pay for things that we value. If you value yourself and your mental, stability, then pay the individuals that's helping. That was my public service.
You guys do telehealth as well?
Yes, we do.
Telehealth, okay. And for those of you who haven't done. All right, I do have one final question, but I want to make sure I didn't miss anything else before I do that. Everyone all set in the audience? Wonderful. If someone is apprehensive, they feel like they need to call you guys or someone like you, but they're feeling apprehensive right now, what is your word of advice to that person?
Ooh, let's see, apprehensive. I think, I don't know, looking at it from that standpoint, if an individual is apprehensive, they're not ready. What I would say to that individual, if you're apprehensive, continue to pay attention to the things that are troubling you and ask yourself, are you okay with what's troubling you? And the more you allow, and more that individual continue to ask themselves that question, they'll make the change and just be available.
You have anything to add to that?
Just asking yourself why. And I would also, if you are having questions about it that are causing you to be apprehensive, reach out and try to get some of your questions answered, because we are here to answer questions as well. Some therapists do consultation, so it's not something that you have to go full all in with. You can come in asking questions and do more research and just try to figure out what it is that you need that might help you feel more ready for the process.
Wonderful.
Yeah, her answer was way better.
Well, that concludes our panel discussion. I would